Hi, this is Doug Daugherty with Hamilton Flourishing, and got a great interview for you. We've got 20 people running for the very important seat of school board in Hamilton County, and it's a really big deal. I mean, school board races were what they just had an election in Virginia for governor, and the school boards became the center of attention for the whole governor's race. And there's a lot of things going on in the schools. They take a 2/3 of the county budget. So I thought, well, let's talk to somebody who's not in the race. Hamilton Flourishing is a 501c3 organization. We don't endorse people. We do try to inform people. So I'm talking to Rhonda Thurman, and I'm asking Rhonda basically the question, what makes a good school board member? Now, Rhonda has been on the school board for 17 years. That's the longest continuous serving person on the school board. That's a lot of history. And also she's interacted with a bunch of folks over that time. The school board hasn't been the same people all that time. She's from District 1, which is the northern part of the county, Soddy Daisy, up that way. And so Rhonda, we're glad you're here. Thank you for taking time off of work to talk with us. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How about you, Doug?
I'm doing fine. Loving this weather.
Yeah.
Couldn't be nicer. Right in the midst of the political season. I think there are 93 people running right now for the elections in Hamilton County. But I think in many ways, the school board races are the most important thing that we can talk about. So it seemed to me that it'd be really good to talk to somebody like you and just say, well, what makes a good school board member? So Rhonda, what does make a good school board member?
Well, I tell you, Doug, I've always tried to remember, or I always have remembered that I work for the taxpayer. I don't work for the school system. I don't work for the administration. I work for the taxpayer. I am their representative going to the superintendent and telling him what the people in my district want in a school system. I don't work for the teachers union. I don't work for the PTA. I work for the taxpayer. And that's what I always try to remember. And I wish that everyone on the school board would try to remember, because I've been on boards before where, the superintendent would get a vote of 8-1 on everything that he wanted to do, regardless of what it was. And it's just like that they want you to feel like that the school board has to go along with the superintendent, and nothing could be further from the truth as far as I'm concerned. And when we have our classes, we have to go to TSBA, the Tennessee School Board Association, once a year to be for our training. And in that training, they always want it to look like everybody agrees all the time. They want you to always look like you're a collective voice, that everybody agrees on everything. And that's just not realistic. And I've told them so when I was up there with some of my training. And they also like for the superintendent to sit up on the lectern with everyone else. And I don't like that. And I even, when Jesse Register was here, I brought up, that he didn't really need to be sitting up there with the school board, because it makes it look like he's part of the board. That is actually a school board meeting, not a meeting for the superintendent. Because if you look at the county commission meeting, the mayor sits off to the side. At the city council meeting, I don't think the mayor's even in the room, because that is a city council meeting. It's not there for the mayor. It is there for it's there for the school board. And so, now that we're going to be getting 2 more members, school board members up there with us, we have moved the superintendent down in front for really, he should have been all along, because as it is now, of course, I sit all the way over on one end. And now to see the superintendent, I have to look around so many people to even be able to see the superintendent. So now this way, I'm looking right at him. He's looking right at me. When I get ready to address him, I can see him. And he's just there to answer questions. And really, anything else that goes on there should be just between the school board. But that's the main thing I try to remember, Doug, who I represent. And every vote that I make keeps that in mind. When I make a vote for a raise or against a raise or whatever, I try to think of the taxpayer. How is this going to affect them? Because the administration wants more money for employees, and I do too. Which brings about another thing is we're getting ready to start budget talks right now. And like I told them the other day, our last meeting, we are getting more BEP money from the state. And we always talk about we want teachers to be paid more, and we want some of our office staff to be paid more, which the office staff that we have is some of the most underpaid people in Chattanooga. But if we are serious about giving a raise, we need to do it up front with the new money we're getting. That's what we need to do with that money, is give a raise for however far that will go. I don't know how much we're going to be getting. I don't think anyone does yet, but we need to give a raise out of that money first, because we certainly don't need to hire anyone else. And we just need to tighten our belts about anything else that's going up a tremendous amount. We might need to look at cutting some things, but we certainly don't need to hire any more people. So if giving a raise to the teachers is our number one priority, let's make it our number one priority, and let's do that first. But if it's not going to cost the taxpayers any more money, let's give them some of the money that we're getting now, or we're going to be getting from the state. And that, like I said, I try to keep that in mind, when the taxpayer in mind.
Good. Well, you mentioned teachers and office staff, didn't you?
Right.
So
yes.
Those that you're saying that both of those folks, in your mind, need raises.
Oh yeah, I really do, and especially the office staff. There are a lot of people in these schools, and I guess I just didn't realize. It was brought to my attention by some people the first of last year about how underpaid some of the office staff was. I'm talking about your registrars, your secretaries, the attendance clerks. Those people in those positions, that I think people would be shocked what a little amount of money that they make. And without those people, Doug, the schools can't run. Now, some of the people at the central office could be gone a month or two and nobody would miss them. But these people, if they're gone a day or two, and that's the truth, if they're gone a day or two at these schools, people will really notice. If the janitor's not there, everyone notices. If the cafeteria staff is not there, people notice. But some of the people, I mean, just think about it. If they're not there, who's really going to miss them? Will the kids in the classroom miss them? No. And
I got a little noise going outside my window, and there's really no way to stop it. So we're going to continue talking. I've been on lots of boards in my life for lots of different things. And the things that I remember the most about serving on a board is that you are the government of an organization, and that's what your job is. You're like the you're the government, and so the important things that I've come up to. Well, let me ask you this. So, what are the most important decisions that the school board has to make every year that just are reoccurring? What are the most important decisions?
Well, our main responsibility, the school board's main responsibility is three things: picking the superintendent, setting the budget, and making policy. Those are our three jobs. Everything that we do should fall under those three umbrellas. And so, of course, you just pick the superintendent just when the superintendent, when their contract is up, or when they leave, or something like that. So that's not every year, but the budget is absolutely every year. And policies are ongoing all year long. And so those are our three main jobs.
Now, let me ask you this. We've just picked a new superintendent to replace the previous one, so that's not likely to happen again, though. I have been told that Hamilton County school system is kind of a stepping stone for people in that vocation of superintendency, what I heard when I heard that is, oh, well, they're all moving on somewhere. They're not buying a grave plot in Chattanooga somewhere. So I don't know whether that's true or not, but that's what I've heard. But anyway, you just hired one. So the budget's coming up, and so that's a big thing. How familiar are school board members? Let me ask it this way. How familiar should a school board member be with the whole budget? I mean, do you all go over it line by line?
Well, I tell you, Doug, last year, our budget's about 400 pages long. And last year, I think that maybe I was the only person that asked any questions at all about the budget. You know, these budget meetings, it's just insane. But we should be pretty familiar with it. Of course, we have budget meetings with the superintendent. I'm due to have one in the next week or so. He meets with each one of us up front, and we tell him, you know, what we would like to see. The administration makes the budget and then presents it to us. That's the way it works. There are some things that we do need to be gone over line by line. You know, sometimes it just seems like some school board members just, you know, as long as there's not going to be an increase, or as long as we're, you know, staying status quo, they just don't ask questions. Which tells me there's a, you know, and there's some things in the budget that it's always quite amusing to me. We have a lot of positions that don't have people in them, so that way when they get ready to hire someone, they'll say, well, you know, we're going to use this position's money to hire this person because we haven't filled that position. So I would really like to know, you know, how many positions do we have that don't have anyone in them? Because it always seems like there's always money to hire whoever they want to hire in the budget, and they kind of pad the budgets that way.
It seems like it's a vast bureaucracy. You're talking about a 400-page budget, 400-page budget, and then knowing actually what those budget lines go to and what they're supposed to accomplish. That seems like a full-time job almost in itself.
But yeah, it's almost impossible as a school board member. It's like playing three-card money. You just can't really track the money that much because there's just too much there. But the very basic things we should be able to get a handle on. You know, like different departments, just look at the department as a whole. And some things we're quite upside down on. And one thing that happens, Doug, that I've been against from the very beginning is across the board percentage raises. I hate them because that's how we've gotten to where we are now, to where the worker bees, the people who do all the work inside the schools, whether it be the teachers or the, like I say, the administrative staff inside these schools, the way that the way the gap has just continued to widen is by giving these across the board percentage raises. You know, 2% of $150,000 is a whole lot more than 2% of $20,000 or $25,000. And so all you do when you do raises like that is you just continue to widen the gap between those people. I would like to see, and this was Fred Skiller told me this years ago, and I thought it was genius. He said, you need to figure out what a 2% raise or whatever kind of raise you want to give a teacher. Find out what the highest paid teacher in Hamilton County is. Find out what they make. Figure out what 2% of their salary is. So that way a teacher's not missing out on anything, and give that amount of raise to everyone. That way it raises everybody up the same amount. And I think that's what I'm going to look at doing in this budget cycle and see if we can't do something like that, because it has just really gotten way out of kilter because some of the people in the central office are making way too much money for what they do.
All right. You mentioned, we talked about budgets, we talked about superintendents, and then we talked about policy. It seems to me the last school board I remember attended, it was a couple months ago, but I have been following it in the news, and seems like there's a lot of policy issues on your all's plates, whether it's going to be what textbooks or what books are allowed in libraries, or whether it's
well, Doug, let me tell you something about the library books.
There just seems like there's a lot of policy issues that bring out factions in the community that you all have to deal with.
Well, there are a few things going on here. As you know, this is a wave across the nation. It's not just here. And I think parents have been awakened to some of the books that are in their libraries. They just didn't know. And so my main purpose is to make parents aware of what's going on, because I feel if parents are made aware, they will do the right thing about as far as their kids are concerned. But the biggest shock that I have had since being on the school board, I thought when we had this book committee, when we got this book review committee together, I thought that we could all get together and we would look at some of the things in some of these books, and that everyone would agree that it was inappropriate, and we could work on making a policy to make it clear, even though our attorney said the language in our policy was clear, and he did not know how some of these books had made their way onto our shelves. It was evidently an interpretation issue of our policy. And so we were going to clarify the language in this policy to make sure that these books were not making their ways onto our shelves. Well, when the first thing I wanted to know was, how do these books end up on our library shelves? Who takes this book, puts it on that shelf, and says, this book needs to be on the shelves for children? Well, I found out that job was solely the responsibility of the librarian. So then that brings on more discussion. Who checks the librarian and says they vetted the books and we're signing off on it, and these books have our blessing? Well, I found out that there are people in the administration who do that. So in talking to them, they seem to think these books were perfectly fine, and they kind of weasel their way around some of our language when it said there may be some books that are not vetted, and if you find a book that's that you have a problem with, you need to fill out this long, cumbersome a request for reconsideration form to have them look at the book. And then if they still deem it okay to be on the library shelf, it gets to stay there. Well, a lot of parents, first of all, did not know about this process. So I wanted to make parents aware of this process. And then two, I found out that some of the things that are in these books that I would not read even to my husband, who I've been married to almost 46 years. I just wouldn't, because it's not something you discuss in a polite company. It's just not. And some of these people found these books to be okay. And I think that's been the biggest shock since I have been on the school board, that there are actually parents, grandparents, and ministers who think that these books are perfectly okay. And I'm not just talking about a few bad words. Some people say, oh, you're just offended by bad words. Oh, no. This is much, much more than that. These some of the things in these books are just not acceptable at all. And I think that most people in Chattanooga would agree with that if they really knew the whole truth. They say we're banning books. No, we don't ban books, but there are just some things you make other choices about. We look at all these different textbooks and we can't choose them all. You choose one. Does that mean you're banning the other ones? No, it just means you made another choice. And that's what we need to do in the schools, as far as some of these books that are on our shelves, go through and maybe make other choices, because these are just not acceptable. And up until now, Doug, and I didn't know this till I got on this book committee, I did not realize that there was a Tennessee law. It was I forget what the law is now. It's 39 something. But anyway, it talks about obscenity, especially when it involves children. And do you know that schools were exempted from that law? Now, why schools were exempted from this law, I do not know. But there is a piece of legislation in Nashville now. It's called HB 1944 and SB 1944. It's one of the few bills I know that has the same number in the House and in the Senate. It's House Bill and Senate Bill 1944. But what it's doing is it's taking away that exclusion for schools and making them have to abide by the same laws as everyone else. Like I said, I have no idea where they were exempted to begin with, but they were. And so
and
this,
we're talking K through 12, right?
We're talking K through 12. Okay. And matter of fact, someone, when we had this library review committee, someone suggested, it was crazy suggested, they said, well, why don't we have a young adult section? I'm like, there are no adults in school. I mean, we're talking K through 12 here. And, but some of these books are so absolutely inappropriate that, like I said, I wouldn't even discuss them with you, Doug. There was a young man, if anybody wants to hear some of, just from 3 of the books, there was a young man named Jordan who spoke at our February the 17th school board meeting, which you can view online. You can either go to YouTube and pull it up, or you can go to the Hamilton County website and pull it up, because all of our meetings are there, or even on Facebook on at Hamilton County Schools Facebook page. It's February the 17th school board meeting at our 1 hour and 40 minute in. And it will take you about 7 minutes to listen. And this young man did his research. He did a lot of work. He reviewed like 16 or 17 books. He made us a binder, put the things that he found in some of these books. And he read excerpts from 3 books that people were so uncomfortable with, and they could not even believe we let him read it at a school board meeting. But at a school board meeting, if you open it up for people to speak, you have to let them speak about whatever they want to speak about, or you have to let no one speak. And we have decided to let everyone speak. But what is so funny, some of the people that found it so offensive that he read this book, or from these books, were people that are okay with these books being on our library shelves. There are school board members that are okay with that. There are administrators that are okay with some of these books. But they were some of the ones that couldn't believe what this young man read from these books. If it's not fit to be read in public in front of adults, it is certainly not fit for children to read. That's just,
Wow.
That's the way I feel about it. And
Wow.
how we have gotten to this point, Doug, I do not know. There's so much wonderful literature out there for our kids to read. I just don't know why we have to resort to this. I just don't understand it.
Well, I applaud your efforts, Rhonda. I know it's got to be tough, and
No, not really. It's not hard for me. You know, I don't care standing alone as long as I'm standing in the right place. And I feel like I'm standing in the right place. And I also know that I have a much higher power to answer to than some of the people in this county. So, and really, this is almost like sport to me, because they usually rat themselves out. Like I say, there was even there is a group called Moms for Social Justice who thinks these books are great, fine. Some of them said they've even bought these books for their children and they're handing them out to children. If that's what they want to do, that's fine. But by the same token, they're the same ones that spoke at the last school board meeting and talked about how inappropriate it was for this young man to read from these books at the last school board meeting. I mean, eventually they trap themselves and they rat themselves out. And that's always what happens, because their arguments make no sense.
yeah, I totally understand. Let me ask you one more question and we'll wrap it up, Rhonda. I'm talking to Rhonda Thurman, School Board District 1 in Hamilton County. She's been on the school board 17 years, and so she's seen more history. And how many superintendents is that? 3, 4?
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, at least about 5, I think.
5, my goodness. So you've seen a lot of change in administration. Yeah. You've seen a lot of people serve on the school board. They need to understand the hiring a good superintendent. They need to understand the budget, and they need to understand what goes into making policy. Now, what's interesting about a school board, like other democratic organizations, is that you got to have, at least with 11, you'll have to have what, 6 people will have to agree with you to get anything through the school board. So, and then you all also have the additional thing of the state is involved in what goes on in the school. And then the federal government is also involved in what goes on in the school. So you'll have all kinds of things to contend with that are, it seems to me it's very complicated. Maybe it's not to you because you've been doing it a while, but man, it seems complicated to me. But my last question, Rhonda, and what these people are, the next election for school board after this one will be in 2 years. So what do you think are the big issues that are going to come up for the next 2 years?
Well, I think these books are going to be a huge issue. I think CRT is another thing that we're keeping an eye out on. some of the professional development kind of leads teachers in that direction. I don't know really how we get a handle on that. I think the state has tried to make laws about teaching CRT here in Hamilton or here in the state of Tennessee, which I really applaud their efforts. I think those are some things. I think when this ESSER money's gone, this is money that COVID money that we have received, and we have hired people with that money. We've done a lot of things with that money. That money's going to go away. And when that money goes away, we're going to have to get real creative if we want to keep some of the things in place, or we're going to have to get rid of some programs that we had that weren't working, or either get rid of the programs that are being paid for with ESSER money. Those are some of the things that I see coming down the pike. But reading.
So the money that you all have got through all the COVID grants and everything, right, you built the system a little larger, or maybe significantly larger, and but down the road, you've got to figure out what you're going to keep and what you're not going to keep, or whether you're going to ask for a tax increase and all that kind of stuff. So
that's right. Those things are coming down the pike in a few years. Of course, we shouldn't need any money this year that I can see why we would need any tax increase. So somebody's going to have to explain that to me. But I don't see why we should, because we are getting more money from the state through the BEP formula. So we're going to be getting that money.
That's the new formula, right?
It's the new formula, yeah.
Yeah, so I saw that. I thought it was a good move on the part of the governor. Yeah. Well, listen, Rhonda, thank you today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. And
another thing, Doug, I want to say something real quick. I just hope that the new board members are ready, that they get an onslaught from all different things. They need to tune out all the chatter. They need to tune out all the noise and stay true to themselves and do what they know to be the right thing to do, and not let these outside groups influence them.
All right. Rhonda Thurman, District 1 school board member for 17 years. Thank you. You look great.
Thank you, Doug.
And we appreciate you for being with us today.
Okay. Thank you for inviting me, Doug.
This is Doug Daugherty with Hamilton Flourishing, signing off and wishing you a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye.